History has moments that still make the air heavy and cause bleeding in the hearts of believers even today. After the martyrdom of the Prophet's family in the plains of Karbala, what happened in the court of Damascus was one of the most shameful and heartbreaking chapters in human history. Yet even in that deep darkness, the light of truth did not fade. It burned brighter than ever. Today, we remove the dust from history and learn about a terrifying, true event in the fearful court of Damascus, when the beloved granddaughter of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha, was brought as a prisoner before the oppressor Yazid. What happened with Yazid's own wife? How did Yazid's defeat begin right inside his own palace, even though he was blinded by the pride of power? And how did one single statement from Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha shatter Yazid's entire arrogance like a house of cards? This event, arranged in the light of the Holy Quran and authentic history, is a huge lesson for every Muslim. In the year 61 Hijri, the holy blood of Ahlulbayt was still fresh on the hot sands of Karbala. A cruel caravan was moving from Kufa toward Damascus, raising dust along the way. This was no ordinary caravan. In it were prisoners who are the family for whom Allah the Almighty revealed verses in the Holy Quran. Allah the Exalted says in Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 33, "Indeed, Allah only desires to keep away impurity from you, O people of the house, and to purify you thoroughly." But what a cruel twist of fate. Today, the members of that pure family are being taken to the capital of Syria, Damascus, tied with ropes like common criminals. After the Battle of Karbala ended, the remaining members of the Prophet's family faced unimaginable cruelty that words cannot describe. After the martyrdom of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, the leadership of the caravan was with the daughter of the Lion of Allah, Ali radiallahu anhu, and the image of Mother Fatima radiallahu anha, Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha. With her were the sick and chained, Imam Zainul Abidin radiallahu anhu, and small innocent children in the burning desert sun and thirst. This caravan traveled mile after mile. While the sky perhaps wept silently, the oppressors put them on camel backs without any cushions or seats. Their blessed bodies were wounded and torn from the long journey. Along the way, Yazid soldiers announced in every settlement that they were bringing some rebels as prisoners. Ordinary people who did not know the truth gathered on both sides of the road to watch the spectacle. But when any truth seeker looked at the faces of the prisoners, they were shocked. From those dust-covered faces shone the light of prophethood. Even in captivity, their eyes and faces showed unearthly dignity and complete trust in Allah the Almighty. After a long and painful journey, when the caravan reached the outskirts of Damascus, a strange scene appeared. Yazid had already ordered the city to be decorated grandly. Arches were built on every street, colorful flags flew, and people wore new clothes as if it were Eid. Music filled the air. Yazid arranged this celebration to show his power and celebrate his so-called victory. He wanted to show the world what happens to those who oppose him. But the common people of Damascus did not know who these rebels really were. They did not know that the ones being insulted in this festival were the dear ones of the masters of paradise. When this sorrowful caravan entered through the city gate, the sound of celebration music mixed sadly with the sighs of the prisoners. Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha kept her head lowered, remembering Allah the Almighty. She saw that the ummah of her grandfather, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was rejoicing at the suffering of her family. But she did not lose patience. She knew this trial was from Allah the Almighty, and its end would bring good for the righteous. The caravan slowly moved toward Yazid's royal palace through the main streets. Thousands of soldiers guarded the palace gate. Finally, that cursed moment arrived, when the sacred trust of prophethood was brought into the court of the carrier of lies, Yazid. That royal palace in Damascus, famous in history for its luxury and splendor, was then filled with courtiers, foreign guests, generals, and important people of the kingdom. Yazid sat on his throne, full of extreme pride. In front of him were dishes of various foods, and the court atmosphere lacked the dignity of Islamic caliphate. It was like a party of a worldly king lost in luxury. He waited eagerly for the moment when he could declare himself victorious and insult the prisoners. The heavy doors of the court opened. The rough commands of the guards and the clanking of chains broke the pin-drop silence. The sacred caravan of the Prophet's family was brought in. In the front row was Imam Zainul Abidin, radiallahu anhu, with heavy chains on his feet and the tiredness and illness of the long journey. On his body, behind him were Bibi Zainab, radiallahu anha, and the honorable women of Ahlulbayt. Imagine that scene, those for whose honor the verse of hijab was revealed from the heavens, were now standing in front of hundreds of strange men. Seeing this, some elderly Muslims in the court, who had seen the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the companions, lowered their heads in shame. Their hearts were bleeding, but no one dared speak because of fear of Yazid's sword. Yazid's eyes were fixed on a special tray holding the blessed head of the master of the youth of paradise, Imam Hussain, radiallahu anhu. Historians narrate that Yazid touched the blessed lips with a stick in disrespect and laughed. He proudly said, "Today I have taken revenge for Badr. Today my account with Banu Hashim is settled. We seek refuge in Allah from that." Seeing this boldness, the companion Hazrat Abu Barza Aslami, radiallahu anhu, who was present, could not stay silent. He shouted, "O Yazid, remove your stick! By Allah, I have seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kiss these lips and this mouth with my own eyes. And today you strike them with a stick?" Yazid became angry at this protest, but he did not say anything immediately. He was so drunk with the intoxication of victory that he thought Allah the Almighty had given him this power and honor because he was on the truth. But he forgot the unchangeable words of the Holy Quran that warn about the temporary happiness of disbelievers and sinners. In Surah Al-Araf, verses 182, 183, Allah the Exalted says, "And those who reject our signs, we will lead them gradually to destruction in ways they do not know. And I give them time. Indeed, my plan is firm." Yazid thought he was insulting Ahlulbayt. He started speaking mockingly to Imam Zainul Abidin, radiallahu anhu. But he did not know that while chains can bind a tiger outwardly, they cannot stop its roar. The splendor of Yazid's court and the boasting of his army began to fade. When the bearers of truth's light arrived there, from one corner of the court came muffled cries, and from another came the laughter of Yazid's flatterers. In this face-to-face meeting of truth and falsehood, while Yazid was busy showing his ultimate power, preparations were being made for an event that would shake the foundations of his palace. Yazid thought the women would shrink in fear and beg for their lives, but he forgot that these were no ordinary women. Their veins carried the blood of the Lion of Allah, Ali, radiallahu anhu, and they were raised in the house of revelation. When Yazid reached the peak of his arrogance, a voice like a lion's roar broke the court's silence. Everyone was startled. Who was this woman who dared speak before the caliph? She was none other than the Lioness of Karbala, the daughter of the Lion of Allah, Ali, radiallahu anhu. Bibi Zaynab, radiallahu anha. Even in captivity, tired and grieving, her voice carried the dignity of Ali, radiallahu anhu, and the strength of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She stood up and began a historic speech, looking straight into Yazid's eyes, one that will remain the voice of the oppressed against oppressors until the day of judgment. She first reminded him of a Quranic verse that crushes pride. Bibi Zaynab, radiallahu anha, recited aloud from Surah Al-Imran, verse 178, "Let not the disbelievers think that the respite we give them is good for them. We only give them respite so that they may increase in sin, and for them is a humiliating punishment." Then she said, "O Yazid, do you think that by making the heavens and earth narrow for us and dragging us like slaves from city to city, you have become honorable before Allah the Almighty, and we have become dishonored? Do you think this temporary power has raised your status? You walk on the earth with pride today, amazed by your own decorations and splendor, because you see the world in your grip. But stop, wait a little. Have you forgotten the words of Allah the Almighty? Every person in the court listened to these powerful words as if under a spell. Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha reminded him of how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the day of the conquest of Makkah, forgave Yazid's ancestors and called them freed slaves. She said, "O son of freed slaves, is this justice that you keep your own women and slave girls in honor behind veils, but deprive the daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of their veils? You took away their coverings, exposed their faces, and your soldiers drove them from city to city. Yet you killed the men who should have protected them." Every word from Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha pierced Yazid's heart like an arrow. Yazid wanted to insult the Prophet's family, but Sayyida Zainab's radiallahu anha courage humiliated him before everyone. She said clearly, "By Allah, O Yazid, you may tear our skin, cut our flesh, but you cannot erase our memory or extinguish the light of revelation. Your days are numbered, your supporters will soon scatter. Remember, the day is not far when Allah's announcer will declare, 'May Allah's curse be upon the oppressors.'" Her faith-filled speech completely changed the court's atmosphere. Those who had been silent out of fear of Yazid now felt a strong blow to their conscience. Whispers started in every corner of the court. Yazid's soldiers looked at each other. How could a captive woman, whose brother's blood was still fresh, speak such truth to such a great king? Yazid realized the situation was slipping out of his control. He became restless and shifted in his seat. He thought how to stop this voice and change the topic. But Allah the Almighty had a different plan. Just when Yazid was mentally cornered, a storm was coming from inside his palace, from his most protected inner quarters, ready to destroy his palace of lies completely. Now turn the scene to the inner palace, where Yazid's wife, Hind bint Abdullah, was staying. According to some historical narrations, especially in certain Shia sources, she was a very pious and God-fearing woman. She stayed away from worldly power's attraction and loved the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from her heart. There are historical differences about whether the noise and cries from the court reached her ears that day and how dramatically she reacted. But in some narrations, she asked her maid, "What is happening in the court? Who have they brought?" When the maid brought the news that some rebels were brought from Karbala as prisoners, including women and children, Hind's heart trembled. According to some narrations, she did not waste time and came forward to find out herself. When she learned that these prisoners were none other than the daughters of the leader of the women of paradise, Fatima radiallahu anha, and the pure descendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was as if the sky fell on her head. She forgot her royal status, nobility, even fixing her head covering. The woman who never appeared before strange men, according to some narrations, ran toward the court barefoot and in disarray, crying out, "Alas, Hussain! Alas, children of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam." When Hind parted the heavy curtains and entered the court, everyone present was stunned. It was unthinkable for the caliph's wife to appear in a full gathering like this. Hind went straight in front of Yazid. Her eyes were full of tears and her face showed volcanic anger. She shouted at Yazid, "O Yazid, has our house's roof touched the sky? Has our nobility grown so much that today the daughters of the Prophet stand under the open sky in your court before thousands of men, and I sit hidden behind veils?" Yazid was shocked to see his wife in this state. He quickly got up from his throne and tried to cover Hind with his own cloak or royal robe. Disturbed, he said, "Hind, what are you doing? Go back to the inner quarters. Your veil is being ruined. Everyone is seeing you." Hearing this, Hind replied in a tearful voice that tore off Yazid's hypocrisy before everyone. She pushed away Yazid's hand and said, "O Yazid, today you are so worried about my veil. You want to cover me because I am your wife. But shame on you. In front of you stand the granddaughters of the king of both worlds, tied with ropes. You took away their coverings, made them unveiled, and now you teach me about veil. Do you not feel any shame at all?" According to some narrations, Hind's cry and reasoning shook even the stone hearts in the court. Yazid saw that his own wife had stood against him today. The insult he wanted to put on Ahlulbayt came back like a boomerang to his own home. Hind then rushed to Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha and Imam Zainul Abidin radiallahu anhu. She hugged the women of Ahlulbayt and cried. She lamented, "Alas, if only I were blind so I would not see this sight today. Alas, the daughters of the Prophet are here covered in dust as prisoners." There are historical differences about whether Hind's crying and wailing made the court atmosphere heavy, or whether she truly organized mourning sessions in black clothes. But some narrations mention this. Yazid's soldiers lowered their weapons and stood with heads down. A strange silence covered the entire court, mixed with regret and intense hatred toward Yazid. Dear viewers, notice this great lesson of history. Yazid, a sinful and oppressive ruler, was so careful about his wife's honor and dignity, yet he had the audacity to insult the women of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose kalima gave him the throne. But Allah the Almighty gives respite but does not leave. The words and scene of Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha and Yazid's wife made whispers start among the common people, courtiers, and even guards in the court. Their consciences were struck hard. They started saying among themselves, "Did we fight against the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Will we be known as killers of the masters of paradise?" Seeing this changed situation in the court, Yazid became terrified. He understood the situation was quickly going out of his control. The fear kingdom he wanted to establish was defeated by the patience of Ahlulbayt. His own wife, his own court, and even his army were mentally turning against him. Yazid sensed his political fall and immediately changed his tone. The same Yazid who boasted of victory moments ago and insulted the blessed head of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu now started fake acting out of fear of public anger. He told everyone to calm down. "May Allah curse Ibn Ziyad. I did not order him to kill Hussein. I only told him to take allegiance. He did this on his own decision. Think how cunning and cowardly a ruler must be to deny his own orders and blame his governor." But no one believed his lies, because there was no sign of real regret on his face, only fear of losing power. To control the situation, Yazid ordered that the prisoners could no longer stay in the court. He commanded that Ahlulbayt be moved with respect to a separate and better residence in the palace. Those he brought to insult were now forced to show them honor because of public pressure. In some narrations, Hind insisted that she would stay with the women of Ahlulbayt and serve them. Yazid had to bow to his wife's insistence. Then an unbelievable scene appeared. Where joy once flooded Yazid's palace, sorrow's shadow descended. According to some narrations, Hind gave up all the palace's luxuries, threw away her fancy clothes, and wore black mourning clothes. The women of Quraysh in Damascus and noble families started coming in groups to Hind to express sympathy for Ahlulbayt. Where Yazid wanted to erase the name of Hussein radiallahu anhu, mourning and majlis for Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu began in his own home. Historians say that the first majlis or mourning gathering for the martyrs of Karbala was held in that house in Damascus, organized by Yazid's own wife. Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha told the true events of Karbala before the women. She described how the innocent Ali Asghar was pierced by an arrow, how Abbas radiallahu anhu's hands were cut off. Hearing her description, the cries of Damascus's women made the sky heavy. Even the walls of Yazid's palace seemed to shake with those cries. The light of truth thus pierced through the darkness of lies and spread, while Yazid became alone and isolated in his own palace. The sorrowful atmosphere in Damascus and the cries inside the palace became unbearable for Yazid. He realized that as long as Ahlulbayt remained before his eyes, his power would be threatened and public anger would keep growing. So he quickly called Imam Zainul Abidin radiallahu anhu and arranged to send them back to Medina with respect. At the time of farewell, Yazid, to hide his sins and show off, offered Ahlulbayt much gold, expensive clothes and gifts. He said, "Accept these as a small compensation from me for the hardships you faced." But Imam Zainul Abidin radiallahu anhu, and Sayyida Zainab, radiallahu anha, rejected that worldly wealth with contempt. Sayyida Zainab, radiallahu anha, said, "O Yazid, we are not greedy for the world. No wealth can compensate for the holy blood of our dear ones. You killed our brothers and now want to buy that blood with wealth. We want nothing from you. We want back our looted coverings and the items connected to our grandfather's memory that your soldiers took from our tents in Karbala." Yazid, ashamed and humiliated, was forced to return them. Finally, that sorrowful caravan set out on the path to Medina. But the scene on departure was completely different. Those who came as prisoners in chains now returned like spiritual victorious heroes with heads held high. And the so-called victorious Yazid, despite his huge army, hid in the darkness of his palace with moral defeat and disgrace. Allah the Exalted declares in Surah Al-Isra, verse 81, "And say, truth has come, and falsehood has vanished away." Surely falsehood is ever certain to vanish. The events in Damascus after Karbala are a living proof of that verse. Yazid wanted to erase the name of Hussain, radiallahu anhu, but on departure, he himself was forced to provide guards for the safety of Hussein's family. After a long journey, when the caravan neared Medina, a heartbreaking scene unfolded. The air of Medina seemed to recognize them. Seeing the minarets of Medina from afar, Sayyida Zainab, radiallahu anha, and the other women broke into tears. When they left Medina, they had their brother Imam Hussain, radiallahu anhu, the brave Abbas, radiallahu anhu, the young Ali Akbar and Qasim. The caravan was full, but today they returned empty. Except for the sick Imam Zainul Abidin, radiallahu anhu, there was no male guardian. The people of Medina rushed upon hearing the news. The mothers of the believers and families of the companions came running, but they saw a devastated caravan. Sayyida Zainab, radiallahu anha, entered Medina and went straight to Masjid-i-Nabawi. She stood before the blessed grave of her grandfather, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Holding the grill of the grave, she cried so deeply that it seemed the soil of Medina trembled. She cried out, "O grandfather, I have brought the news of your dear Hussein's death. Your ummah slaughtered your son thirsty in the plains of Karbala. They burned our tents, took our coverings, and dragged us as prisoners from city to city." Hearing Sayyida Zainab's lament, no one present could hold back their tears. Sorrow spread to every home in Medina. The Battle of Karbala ended outwardly on that day, but from then on, an eternal revolution and cry was born in the hearts of believers until the Day of Judgment. Respected viewers, outwardly Yazid may have won the battle in Karbala's plains, but in the court of history he was completely defeated. Yazid wanted to wipe the name of Imam Hussain, radiallahu anhu, and his family from the world. But even after 1400 years, in every corner of the world, in every believer's heart, the name of Hussain, radiallahu anhu, is remembered with respect and love. And Yazid's name is taken only with hatred and condemnation. The grand palace of Damascus has turned to dust today. No trace of Yazid's grave is found. Yet the shrine of Imam Hussain, radiallahu anhu, in Karbala has become a place of visitation for millions. In the fight between truth and falsehood, the final victory is clear like daylight today. Allah the Almighty promised in the Holy Quran, "Surely the party of Allah will be victorious." The biggest lesson from this event for us is that no matter how powerful an oppressor or ruler is, he is as weak as a spider's web before truth. Love and respect for Ahlulbayt is an inseparable part of every believer's faith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in Sahih Muslim, "I leave among you two weighty things, the Book of Allah, which is a guiding light, and my Ahlulbayt, my family. I remind you of Allah." Regarding my Ahlulbayt, today our duty is to hold their ideals in our hearts and have the courage to speak truth against any injustice or oppression, just as Sayyida Zainab radiallahu anha did in Yazid's court. The lesson of Karbala is not only for the month of Muharram, it is our companion for life. Let us keep the sacrifice of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu and his family in our hearts. May we remain firm on the path of justice and color our lives. with the light of Quran and Sunnah. May Allah the Almighty grant us all the ability to walk on the straight path and be soaked in love for Ahlulbayt. Ameen. If this has touched your heart even a little, please like and share it with your friends and family so everyone can know this true and terrifying event of history. Share your feelings in the comments about Yazid's behavior and Sayyida Zainab's radiallahu anha courage. Subscribe to our channel now and press the bell icon to learn more true and lesser known events of Islamic history. See you in the next video, inshallah. Until then, may Allah keep you all well and healthy. Ameen.